welcome to the start of a weekly reading vlog in which we're going to be celebrating Winterween. I am so excited for this. I've been itching for Winterween to come around and I cannot wait. So starting at the top, I've already changed things from my TBR that I originally had planned. Is anybody shocked? No, not really. Secondly, I should also say it is Saturday. I was planning to start this yesterday, but I didn't really read anything. So I realized, I don't think Gabby cares too much if I adjust the dates a little bit. So we're gonna start on Saturday and then run till next Friday. But I've had a pretty good Saturday overall. Josh and I ended up going on a hike today, which was really nice. It was great weather for it. But I knew we were gonna have a long drive ahead of us whenever we started planning for a hike. So I was trying to figure out what was a shorter horror book that I could put on and have him listen to along with me and hopefully would work for something in the prompts. I let him look through some of Delilah S. Dawson's other stuff, seeing as how I really enjoyed 𝗖cie by that author, and we read that one together. He also really liked it, and he read the synopsis of Bloom and was immediately intrigued. So we started into that and we did get about 25% in. So we start out following this woman, Ro, who has recently moved back to Georgia, and she's kind of still trying to find what's her new life gonna look like. She is a professor. She had like dumped her boyfriend before moving here, and then after breaking up with her boyfriend, her mom kind of like threw a fit over this like relationship imploding, and so she has kind of cut off her mom as well, meaning she doesn't really have anybody. She's pretty lonely, and she ends up going to a farmer's market and meeting Ash, who has a stall there and is like immediately enamored with her. It's so funny because like pretty immediately I very much related to that whole am I attracted to you or do I want to be you mindset that Ro seems to have about Ash. Ash is like so cottagecore. She has plants and she brings honey and makes handmade soaps and all these wonderful delicious cupcakes. I gotta say the cottagecore vibes are really strong. I am really liking those. It kind of makes it have a sort of fairy tale feel, at least in the imagery, which I'm really enjoying, but there's definitely just something about Ash that isn't quite right. I didn't know too much more than that this was a Sapphic horror story going in. I'm really excited to continue reading. Josh was too. He actually asked if he could keep reading without me, and I said no, because we got to read this together now. So I'm not quite sure if I will finish this out during the readathon, but it would count for red on the cover, also a horror or thriller. Apart from that one, I did do a little bit of reading into my arc of On Sundays She Picked Flowers by 𝗖cie Schofield. I'm really excited going into this one because Jan Agaton read an arc of it and she said it was one of the best horror books she's ever read. And already, I will admit, I'm really liking how this is getting set up. We are following Jude, this woman who is in her 40s, and unfortunately she still lives with her mother, who is the worst. This is set, I believe, in like the 50s or 60s, and it seems like it's somewhere in the South. And already I am suspecting that generational trauma is going to be playing a part into the story and the themes. But Jude is officially starting to reach her breaking point and is planning on running away. Having read the synopsis, I do know she manages to run away. She finds some sort of like a cabin in the woods and lives there for a good few years until this woman ends up showing up. So I think this one was also going to be a Sapphic story, but I'm really liking the imagery so far, and the Southern Gothic feel is perfect. It's definitely providing that atmosphere for me and settling me into the story really well. I'm also already growing attached to Jude as a character, so I'm really excited to read more of this one. And seeing as how I do have an arc of that one, it could count for reading a book in the dark because I tend to read my arcs on my Kobo, and a lot of the time I do read either first thing in the morning or right before I go to bed. This could also obviously work for a horror or a thriller and also has red on the cover. I do have a few other books up in the air that I'm considering to try and get on audio, but I haven't officially decided on anything yet, so we'll see how that goes. I'm still pretty focused on Bloom, I won't lie to you, but no, we started it together. I do like that we read books together sometimes, so I do want to continue that for us, but I really want to keep reading it. Hey y'all, so it's Monday. I have actually got not much read either. I did read a little bit more of this on my lunch break today. I am liking it already. Now Jude is on the run, and I believe it's supposed to be finding a shelter in the woods, and that's where the story seems like it's actually going to officially begin. But right now I just want to give Jude a hug. But the writing is also so good. There's been a few lines already that I've had to annotate because wow, Trinity of her mother's identity, that was a great line there. And then when it comes to the atmosphere so far, I definitely feel very settled into the southern town. This is set during, I believe, the 1960s, and there are certain elements from like pop culture that will be referenced, and all of those are really reinforcing the setting very well. There is some racist language utilized here, though it like makes sense with the setting and the time period, unfortunately, but did just want to give a forewarning for that. I'm already really liking it. I'm hoping tonight that I will get some time to sit down and really just focus on reading it. Attempted to start into the audiobook of Blood on Her Tongue by Joanna Van Veen, and then pretty quickly realized, wait a second, this is another horror book that I think is Sapphic and Gothic writing. I probably shouldn't read two of those at the same time. So instead, I do actually think the next audiobook I'm going to try and pick up is Heartless Hunter by 𝗖cieých𝘁���. This one would work for red on the cover, vampires, werewolves, witches, oh my, whatever that one is. In this one, I believe we are following, what's her name? Rune, who is a witch, and I think she works to try and help these other witches either like escape or live secretly. She helps them in some way, shape, or form in this kingdom where witches are not wanted. And then I believe she ends up somehow in an arranged marriage with Gideon, I want to say is his name. Yep. And he is a witch hunter, I believe. That's about all I know. But I have heard a lot of positive things about it, so I'm really hoping I will like it, and I am excited to pick up the audiobook. So though I have done a dismal job of reading so far, here's hoping that now that the week has started, perhaps I will do a little bit better. We'll see though. Hey my loves, so it's Tuesday. I went into Winterween with a set TBR. Well, not like super set, but like fairly set out. I had a list of things I was really hoping to try and get read, and I am not doing great with it, honestly. My plan was to start into Heartless Hunter this morning, which I did. I did start into the audiobook, and I got like 17 pages. I would not say anything I read was bad so far, but I'm still very much in the setup. We're getting to learn a little bit about the world and about Maroon's character, the background, and like what her life looks like now after having turned her grandma in for witchcraft. It is intriguing, but unfortunately, it feels like a book where this is not a book I want to be reading on audio. I want to be reading it with my eyeballs, which is really unfortunate. So I read it on my drive to work, but then like once I got to work, anytime I had the ability to maybe pick up an audiobook, it was like, no, I just don't really want to be reading this. So I went back and forth a whole lot of like, what the heck do I pick up? Because I can't not be listening to an audiobook. I don't do that. And so I figured, okay, I have been in a hardcore true crime mood lately. I've been watching a lot of Summer Sanchez. We watched some Call Me Chris last night. What's some true crime stuff I have on my TBR that could work for something in Winterween's prompts? And I realized, shout out to my parents who got me She Word That the Algorithm Doesn't Like by Skip Hollandsworth, a book that I got for Christmas. He's a true crime reporter, and this is a collection of his different pieces that have focused on specifically crimes committed by women around Texas. And I really like that he adds some postscript to each of the stories, and already really liking this. Really liking this. There is also some like art and photos throughout the book as well, which is super cool. We do get an introduction around like how Hollandsworth got an interest in crime and why he decided to focus on the crimes of women. And I appreciate that he adds that, but it's not so focused on him. This is really, like I said, a compilation of different pieces he's worked on over the years, but how there's always this additional element of interest when it comes to cases that are around women. Part of that being because of the perception around a woman committing a crime, the fact that women tend to actually receive harsher sentences when they commit certain crimes, the fact that a lot of the times women are still seen as the like safer alternative in comparison to a man as to who would be more likely to commit a crime. But then diving into some of the ones, like for example, the first is about a woman who actually was a serial robber. She committed so many bank robberies and did so while dressing up as a man. And even though her getup was like not particularly convincing when looked at more closely, it still worked for so many years because people just could not fathom a woman committing a crime like that by herself. And yet she never actually used any violent force in any of her crimes, which is wild. Like, the perception her family has of her is still that she was a good person. So this is definitely what I was needing. Thankfully, it came out in 2025, so it can work for a 2025 release that I was not able to get to, but unfortunately it doesn't really work for any other prompts on this. So I really need to work on Sundays She Picked Flowers, so I can hopefully count this for like 3 prompts, and then I think the only one I will have left is the werewolves or witches or vampires, oh my, prompt. And I'm trying to figure out like maybe a manga or comic or something that I can slide in there. But I did read a little bit more into On Sundays She Picked Flowers today on lunch, and I am continuing to really enjoy this. Shifted into part 2, and it feels like we're getting real setup up to the actual plot now, but I just love the writing. It's lush, it's beautiful, it's got this very vivid imagery, and it's like kind of cottagecore-ish, but darker and more grotesque, like getting into the nittier gritty things that are often associated with cottagecore, and I'm really liking it. Every time I do pick it up, I don't want to quit reading, but unfortunately I have not had a lot of time nor energy for eyeball reading so far. So this readathon is not going at all the way I thought it would be. Happy Thursday. Actually, I forgot to update yesterday, but to be fair, overall, I really didn't read nearly enough. My parents ended up surprising me for lunch, so I didn't read on my lunch break, and then I absolutely passed out while trying to read before bed last night. So really, majority of my reading over the last day has been on my true crime book, and I'm really liking this. I'm really liking it. I think the author has done a really great job of collecting stories where there's something makes their story stand out in comparison to other crimes, which really helps to differentiate every chapter, but there's always some really nice emotional moments within the chapters as well, whether it's around the victim or actually the perpetrator in some of these situations. It's really, really well done. I mean, this author does know how to tug at your heartstrings. The last chapter I actually just finished was following this group of women who ended up becoming performers actually on the radio in the 1930s while they were in prison. And this ended up being really beneficial for some of them, to the point where they actually were able to get their sentences reduced by partaking in this. And he ended up finding out about this, putting so much effort into researching it and finding these women. Come to find out, not many of them really ended up becoming musical talents or anything like that. A lot of them, unfortunately, because of other aspects of their lives while they were in prison, they just wanted to move on. They wanted to never think about that time in their life again, even if like they may have actually ended up becoming famous. It was wild. And the series of crimes also just spans over a large amount of time. So like I said, that one was set during the 1930s, but the last chapter I am on now is actually following a woman who I think her crime happens sometime in the 2010s, I would imagine. That's what it seemed. Yeah, 2019 was when she was on stand. So yeah, but this is going so freaking well. This is exactly what I was needing. This was scratching the itch I had, and I'm loving it for it. I did read a little bit more into On Sundays She Picked Flowers, and I am continuing to really like that one. There's this feel to the story that's starting to remind me of like a creepy fairy tale, and I'm all over it. It's just my thing. I love a good creepy fairy tale aesthetic. Along with that though, we are starting to finally kind of dive into like what sort of a relationship is Jude going to develop with this mysterious woman who comes to her cabin, and I'm really, really liking it. I was so engrossed into it last night, but I only ended up reading 5% because I was like passing out, and we went to bed at like 10 o'clock. So that's really saying something. I don't know, this week overall, Josh and I have both commented we feel exhausted, and not sure why. It's really kicking my reading in the ass, unfortunately. But once Josh gets home, I probably will be heading over to my brother's this evening, meaning I don't know how much reading I will get done. Luckily, I am planning to drag this out for another day. I think I might try to read one of my comics for the final prompt that I don't have anything else lined up for. I'll explain my logic. So Blackest Night is basically zombies. It's superheroes and supervillains as zombies. The like last prompt I had is a book with vampires or witches or werewolves or something, etc. It says etc. So I'm guessing just like some sort of paranormal being thing. And I would say zombies falls into that. Do I actually think I'm gonna read this whole thing at any point tonight? No, absolutely not. I'm hoping maybe tomorrow night. Since it's a Friday, I'll try to like lay out, blast through this, maybe while Josh is gaming or something. This whole TBR, this whole week has gone not the way I was anticipating, but we're still making progress, and that is something if nothing else. Hello friends, so I have utterly failed at finishing out this readathon, and actually overall just kind of reading anything this weekend that wasn't fan fiction, because I finally went down the rabbit hole, binged through Heated Rivalry, and then started reading all the fanfics. So have I gotten really anything read that I was hoping to this weekend? No. But I did actually do a little bit more reading on Friday at the very least. I continued on with On Sundays, She Picked Flowers. I'm at 61% into this, and I am really liking it. We're finally getting some answers, and I'm very curious about how things are going to progress from here. But I also just really like how introspective this story has been around Jude and her background, the way she is trying to break this mental cycle that she finds herself in, which is very reminiscent of what her mother would do, and how she's really trying to break the generational cycle of abuse. I'm really, really liking that. I think the themes that are going on in the story are just very well done. And then the writing is gorgeous. It is so lush. It is so beautiful. It drags me into the story in a way like 𝗖cie or Addie LaRue did, where there's like these really poignant moments, but like the prose itself is just very lush and evocative. And as I said in one of my prior updates, it's like very nature focused, but I really like how it dives into some of the like not pretty elements of nature, which is a great segue actually to also talk about. Josh and I read more of Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson, and we actually hit the halfway point, and I'm also really liking that. Another one where there's great writing when it comes to nature, but also now that we're starting to focus more on the relationship that Ro and Ash are sort of maybe developing. There's all these wonderful, very visual metaphors that like play into what Ro's feeling and describing how she's like processing this new relationship. But Ash is definitely starting to show some colors that are a little suspicious. But I really like how it's being done in a way where there's always this plausible deniability around it, where it's like, yes, this could be questionable. This could be pretty bad, but there's like a totally normal, realistic explanation for it. And Ro just keeps assuming it is obviously the most realistic explanation, like Occam's razor, right? We saw a little bit under the veil for Ash's character. And it's just like, it's building really well. We're really, really liking it. We're both really, really liking this. So even though, sadly, I did not get nearly as many books read for this vlog, at the very least, I am continuing reading. Like I said, though, this past weekend, I fully fell off the horse. I will so admit it. I fought the Heated Rivalry thing for a while just because whenever something's really hopped up all over my social medias, it kind of just makes me not want to join the group. Call me a hipster, I don't care. It's just something in my brain, but it's finally started to die down enough that the show is finished that I was like, okay, it's all out. I don't have to wait for new episodes. We have a long weekend. We're being lazy. I'll binge through it. It was pretty good. It really, really reminds me of old school Queer as Folk, actually, which is very funny.
What is this place? From the crowd, I suspect it's a homosexual drinking establishment.
I mean, obviously, there are definitely big differences between 𝗖cie and Shane to Brian and Justin, but like there's a few things that really reminded me of Brian and Justin in Heated Rivalry. I also gotta say, Scott and Skip's episode was maybe the best episode for me. Well, excluding the last one. That one was probably my second favorite episode, just because I really liked it. It was so them just in their little happy bubble. I think Scott's storyline was also Josh's favorite because it felt like the most plot focused, because we were having to hyperfixate on this storyline for plot. But also just really liked 𝗖cie. The actors both did a phenomenal job in acting. Also pretty hot, but the coming out scene at the end of the series was really great. I loved that. I really loved the dinner with his parents. That was fantastic. Maybe eventually I will finally get to reading those books. I don't know. I haven't decided if I want to actually try reading them. And unsurprisingly, they have like a million years wait at my library. It's not like it'd be happening anytime soon anyway. But on that note, that is officially it for today, y'all. This was a fail of Winterween, but here's hoping the rest of my January goes better, and I hope the rest of your January reading goes well too. So on that note, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let's leave some sort of a flower emoji because we had a lot of nature stuff in this one down in the comments. I have links to all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me down in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!